WorldAlign is an online journal aimed at provoking thought and opinion, with the hope to start and deepen conversations between communities and within communities, out of which we may become a better world.
You've heard already, and we'll hear again, from Christopher about the virtues of reason. I want to emphasize in this debate that at no point whatsoever will I be appealing to biblical revelation. In other words, I'm going to argue on the basis of reason alone, and in that sense I'm going to engage Christopher Hitchens entirely on his own ground. My argument against him is going to be that it is he who is being selectively unreasonable and applying a different standard to Christianity and religion than he applies to anything else. For example, if we were to land a Voyager on a distant planet, and if we were to see signs of inventions, art, construction, buildings, and so on, we would immediately say there must be intelligent life on this planet. There must be aliens who live here. We've never seen any of them, but it is a reasonable inference from what we do see. We see signs of intelligence, and we infer an intelligent designer, namely the aliens. Anybody who said out of hand, it's impossible that there are these intelligent creatures, they add nothing to the explanation, who created them? This would be idiocy. We may not know who created them, but they are an adequate explanation of the data in front of us, namely signs of intelligence produced by evidently intelligent creatures. Similarly, we have a universe that is brimming with intelligence. How do we know that? Because it takes the genius of an Einstein or a Newton to look at nature and excavate the intelligence out of nature, to discover in nature these highly complex laws. And so I say, if it is the job of science to excavate the intelligence out of nature, who put it in there? So to me, this is not some kind of hocus pocus, it is a reasonable inference from what we do see. When we talk about the universe, and it's a vast, vast universe, it appears...
Another 15 seconds.
When we look at the fine-tuned universe, a universe that appears to be fine-tuned for life, we see in it the clear signature of a designer. It would be as though I would enter the lottery in all 50 states and win every time. It would be reasonable to infer a plot. It would be absurd to say, well, that's just the way things happen by accident, because the coincidence is far too great. Thank you.
One moment. The next round of questions is about, what about Christianity? And I'm going to have Dinesh D'Souza begin, and then followed by Christopher Hitchens.
In thinking about Christianity, I want to begin by picking up a theme that Christopher touched on earlier, namely the fact that these religions are, in a sense, all in the same boat. In other words, they are all equally ignorant. In some senses, they are all equally dangerous. Well, I think one of the reasons we've seen the new atheism take off in the way it has is because it's been able to take advantage of 9/11. In other words, it's been able to take the actions of the Islamic radicals and try to use them to smear religion in general. Look, this is what religion does. I think it was Richard Dawkins, or one of the other leading atheists, who called 9/11, quote, a faith-based initiative. And so what's going on here, I think, is really a bogus analogy. It's true, the Islamic radicals do bad things in the name of God. That's true. But there is nothing equivalent in any other religion. For example, where are the Buddhist suicide bombers? I'm still waiting for them. There's nothing in Hinduism to compare. Christianity, where's the Christian Bin Laden? Where's the Christian Al-Qaeda? Where's the Christian Hamas or Hezbollah? Where's the Christian country today run along the lines of post-Khomeini Iran? It simply does not exist. So, in the name of reason and balance, I would call upon Christopher Hitchens to disavow what I think is a specious analogy, between Islamic radicalism on the one hand and all the other religions which I think are being unfairly smeared with the same brush. Now, on this business of multiple religions, the logic appears to be that no one of them can be true because you've got so many of them. And besides, we are initiated into a religion because of where we are born. In other words, most of you who are Christians are probably Christians because you were born in Orlando, Florida, or Tulsa, Oklahoma. And had you been born in Afghanistan, the argument goes, well, you might be a Muslim. That's true, but it says absolutely nothing about whether religion is true or false. Consider this. If you live in Oxford, England, you are more likely to believe in Darwinian evolution than if you live in Oxford, Mississippi. If you are born in New York City, you're more likely to embrace the theory of relativity than if you are born in New Guinea. What does it follow about whether evolution or relativity are true? No, it says nothing whatsoever about that. So what's going on here is, you can say, a logical fallacy, which is the presence of diversity illustrates the absence of truth. That's what the atheists are implying, and I think it's completely wrong. I want to say one thing about Christianity that distinguishes it from other religions. Because in some senses, I look at religions as human efforts to apprehend the divine. It's not surprising to me religions differ. Man is trying to, if you will, reach up and get a hold of God. That's not easy to do. And so you've got these competing revelations and competing utopias and so on. I do want to say one thing that sets Christianity apart from the others. And that is, in general, most religions, in fact all that I know, are human efforts to ascend up to the level of God. They're human efforts to climb a ladder, usually a ladder of rules and regulations, but a ladder of some sort to reach, you might say, the level of perfection, the divine level. Christianity is unique in that it inverts the whole equation. It says basically that man can't get up there, it's too high. The only way for this to happen, if it's going to happen, is God has to descend or condescend to the human level. So Christianity is different in that it involves God becoming, and you might say, coming down to man's level, healing, if you will, the great breach between us and him, whereas other religions think we can do it man's way. Thank you.